What's going on, everybody? It's Matthew. So today, first of all, good morning. Today, I want to talk about my thoughts on like the stocks that I choose to invest in and why I don't cover more EV stocks and stuff like that. Because I often get a lot of questions about like, what do you think about this one, this one, this one. I'm actually doing a video on Arrival just because I got so many requests for that one. Um, and it'll probably be the last EV stock video that I do aside from Neo and maybe Tesla. I actually haven't done a Tesla video before because I figure so many people are already covering it. Um, but the reason why I don't invest in too many EVs is because one, I figure I just invest in the best of breed, right? This is like a kind of philosophy investing style that I've been preaching for like a while now, is find a sector that you think will really change the world and or like is very revolutionary, or find a really high growth company, obviously, and then pick the best of that breed. So like in the EV stocks, I think Tesla and Neo are the two best stocks. That's why I invested in them. So far, that thesis has been kind of playing out. Um, I chose not to invest in Workhorse because I thought too much of it depended on this single contract, and as that gets pushed back and pushed back, Workhorse, kind of came down from its highs, and it is starting to march up again. With Hyliion, I thought it was a great 1 to 2 year play. That one wasn't actually best of breed in my opinion. I think it was more like, okay, this is a good transitional stock, and I thought I was pretty. I hope I was clear about that when I had invested, that this is like a stepping stone from ICE to fully electric. And the reason I sold is because it just realized my 1 to 2 year price target. Like, valuations just didn't make sense, and it just happened within 6 months or like 4 months instead of a year or 2 years, which is what I thought it would happen. Um, and then, like with other ones like Canoe or like I don't even know like many of the other EV plays. What else is there? Like Fisker. To me, it's just like there's so many. Why not just find the best one or two and really dig into those and research and just invest in those? The other thing that kind of scares me about EVs is that they're so popular amongst retail investors, and I'm not saying that's, well, in my opinion, it's not a great thing, because I know everyone in this Discord likely does a lot of their own due diligence, but not everyone who's a retail investor does, and that can create weak hands. And if everyone's just investing in something because their friend told them to, or because they heard someone else say it on like a Yahoo board, how much conviction do you think they're going to have when the stock starts to drop? Probably not a lot. And then, you know, I just personally wouldn't sleep too soundly if I had a lot of my money in a lot of these EV, like speculative EV plays, a lot of which aren't really producing much revenue. I saw an article that was like, a whole new list of EVs are coming to the market, and none of them have had any actual revenue. And I thought that was a really funny title because it was true. So I can't speak to like the ones that are on the market right now, but in this article, like none of them had revenue. Um, they all just had projected revenue. And then when they hit the market, their valuation skyrockets. And the way I see it, the more the price rises, the more it has to justify, the higher the expectations are. If it doesn't hit those expectations, it'll crash pretty hard. So the reason why, like if you look at my portfolio, why don't I just pull up a photo of my portfolio really quickly? Give me 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. If we look at my portfolio, right? Neo, okay, obviously everyone knows. What I'm trying to say is like I'm trying to invest in companies that not everyone is just flocking to because of hype. I try to invest in companies that have like serious growth potential, but also, aren't super hyped up. Like not everyone knows about. And fortunately, YouTube algorithm doesn't love that, but it's okay because we're here for the long term. So Neo, everyone knows about that one, so that's an exception. We got in around 1180. This is because at the time I was okay. This is best of breed in my opinion. It has a solid number of financial statements that we can look into. It has a history, it has a path, it has a plan, it has vehicles on the road. It's very far along, less speculative than say Arrival, which I'm covering right now, which I think it has a 1 micro factory or 2 maybe, and it has $1.4 billion in orders, but those are pre-orders, 10,000 of which are completely optional. The other 10,000 can be canceled or modified, and it's in a deal with UPS, and they're starting production on their first actual market vehicles in the fourth quarter of 2021. So they're not going to have an actual vehicle for sale until a year from now, versus NIO, which has obviously thousands of sales every quarter. Upwork, not a lot of people talked about Upwork. Now people are, because they've seen the gains, but this is a company that I was confident in, and I didn't have to lose sleep at night thinking, what if this one pops? What if this one, what if people start selling and panic selling? The Trade Desk, another one not a lot of people talk about. The valuation is very questionable on this one, but definitely not as scared to hold this one as I would be to hold 3 specs EV plays. Square, okay, a lot of people talking about Square, that's fair. But again, I think it's not as speculative because it's a company that's been around for so long. It's a massive company. They're leading a digital transformation of banking, and again, it's just about what they've done already, in my opinion. Celsius, a little sketchy with the accounting. That's just because it's a small company. Not uncommon for companies to have smaller auditors, but hold on, let me just make sure you guys can see what I'm saying. Okay, yeah, I can. A lot of smaller companies have smaller auditors, but it is less common for them to receive so many comments from the SEC on their filings, but I think most of those stopped in 2018. Management was a little sketchy in the past, but it's kind of unfair to assume people can't change. I know there's a saying people don't change, but if you get called out for fraud in the public light, why would you just go back and do it again? That doesn't really make sense to me. So I wouldn't assume, but I'm also not saying that they're saints. So part of the reason why I'm not adding, also because they had a huge run up lately, but Celsius, no one was talking about Celsius, really, right? So I'm not worried about hype here. I know the rise in Celsius wasn't really from hype, unless one of you guys is secretly a billionaire and just followed me on that trade. Maxer. No one talks about Maxer. Literally nobody. And we're up 38% on it. And they have a clear path. They're executing well. I probably know of all the stocks, I probably know the most about Maxer. So confident in this stock, and I don't have to worry about any of their moves being based on hype. Space, okay. I've been in this one for a while though, since before the whole YouTube finance space even took off. Been in this one for a while, just not in this account. So not too worried about that one. And I think, again, they actually have a path. They're led by very reputable people. You have Chamath, you have Richard Branson. Their CEO, I think, is ex-NASA or something. It's speculative, but less speculative in my opinion, because they're actually doing test flights. They have pre-orders what they've actually collected already. And they're very close to their first commercial flight. Sea Limited, another one. People have talked about this one for sure. But again, they're doing things right now in the real world. I guess the main point is one, stocks that are less hyped up, and two, stocks that have actually had a track record of financial statements that you can look into and dig into and make proper assumptions from, rather than just going on the word of the company that we're going to do 14 billion in sales in 5 years. Teladoc, not a lot of people talk about this one. I guess people think it's boring. I don't. It's I think it's my biggest position right now. Upwork is catching up quickly though, surprisingly, because I think we're up over 100, almost 150% on Upwork right now today. It's close to 9,000. But Teladoc, don't know why people don't talk about this one more. They didn't talk about Livongo. Facebook, I don't really need to say anything for Facebook. CrowdStrike, not a lot of people talk about CrowdStrike. Eli, Callaway, nobody's talking about Callaway. Jeremy mentioned it once, I think, but that was after we mentioned it and we talked about it. And if Callaway starts shooting up, I don't have to worry about. That's the other thing is are these gains going to hold, right? NIO, I don't know if these gains are going to hold. Upwork, I'm pretty confident these gains will hold because they're not built on hype, right? TTD, valuation's kind of up there. Maybe they won't hold, but it'll be for different reasons. Celsius, Maxer, I'm like these. I think Teledoc, like these gains will hold because they're not high. This is just my philosophy. Um, this is a completely like unscripted video. I hope it makes sense. Um, but yeah, it's just like I think the market loves speculation right now and it's being very forgiving. Um, but I highly recommend maybe just like if I were in this position, I would be looking for the best of breed, like Neo and Tesla, or what you can do is like I'm thinking of making a video like how to like growth and like invest in growth. Um, Again, this is a analogy that I've brought up before. Sam Brandon, sell the pickaxe. Like don't sponsor miners to go find gold. Set up a shop and sell pickaxes, right? Like don't bet on one horse. Instead, just like provide the tools. So instead of betting, like if I were like a new investor, I didn't have anything. If I saw the EV sector, instead of betting on like a bunch of different horses, like I don't know, name like Rivian, Fisker, like Workhorse, Hyliion. Instead of betting on just all of them, I would bet on a company like ChargePoint, right? ChargePoint is actually really interesting. I didn't get in because I was too late, in my opinion. It's already taken off. I would have gotten in if it was still like 13, 14. But ChargePoint, if you don't already know, is like the leading supplier of charging ports, like for EVs. And they struck a deal with Apple where I think like in all of Apple cars, like they'll be already plugged in on the maps as like the charging stations. They control like 7 times, they have 7 times more charging units than like the next closest competitor in terms of market share. Like ChargePoint provides the tools, the pickaxes, if you will, whereas these other companies are all competing to be the best EV, right? And Tesla chargers I think only work for Teslas. Maybe I could be mistaken, but another one is Trade Desk. Trade Desk provides the tools for advertisers. You don't have to bet on like the streaming service that's going to win. You can just bet on the Trade Desk, or you can bet on Roku, right? The only reason I haven't gotten into Roku is because again I think the valuation is kind of crazy. But like if I were more of like a risk tolerant person, I guess I feel like I'm pretty risk tolerant, but like if I were even more risk tolerant, I would not mind getting into Roku. Because they provide the tools for the streaming services. You don't have to bet on Netflix versus Disney versus Hulu. I guess Disney owns Hulu, but like you get the point. So that's my perspective on like the EV bubble is, or no, sorry, I guess it's not a bubble. The other thing is that the weed bubble was because I think legalization wasn't there. People weren't ready. People were just investing because they heard it had to do with marijuana. They thought that meant money, but the market, like the real world, wasn't ready for it yet. In this case, I think the world's ready for EVs, and that's why I think instead of everything popping, I definitely think we're approaching bubble territory. But instead of everything popping, I think only a few will pop. I'd say at least half of these EV stocks that we're all playing today will go down. But I think the other ones that will have staying power. I think Neo, obviously Tesla, will have staying power. Like I don't think their stocks will get hit as hard, or if anything, they'll be a lot more resilient than these other companies. I think if I had to pick 3 EV stocks right now, probably be Neo, Tesla, and probably ChargePoint. Honestly, SBE, they're doing a reverse back, I think. But again, I'm not getting into ChargePoint unless it drops below like 17, 18, maybe 20. So yeah, I hope this video helps. This kind of explains why, like when you ask me about an EV stock, I'm not really that great at responding because the whole sector has just kind of put me off. I'm more interested in finding stocks that people aren't talking about, if that makes sense. And there are definitely times where I'm like, oh, like my channel would be doing so much better if I talked about EVs, or like, oh, like these guys are putting up such great gains, like because they're just investing in EVs. Like, why can't I do that? And at the end of the day, I really want to practice what I preach, which is like, don't chase, don't FOMO, and invest in best of breed, invest in the tool maker. So, like if you look at Celsius, I think it's seeing some of the fastest growth in the beverage industry. If you look at Teladoc, best of breed in the telehealth industry, which I think will be revolutionary. Oh, and by the way, like Teladoc doesn't get paid by the visit. Like they get paid when health providers want to allow their employees to have the option of telehealth. So like even if no one goes, as long as they're paying for the option to have Teladoc. Just so that's clear. Callaway, best of breed in golf and recreational, maybe even in the event, dare I say, with Topgolf coming back. That's one I think didn't get enough love with the vaccine news. Like no one seemed to realize that if we get a vaccine, Topgolf can open sooner and therefore start making money faster, pay down the debt sooner, generate net income sooner. I don't know why that one didn't really rally as much on the vaccine news. Kind of weird to me. Maybe that tells us that Callaway isn't on anyone's radar as much as it should be with this merger. What other stocks do I own? Square, best of breed in fintech, in my opinion. Maybe like PayPal or someone else. Upwork, best value in the gig economy, in my opinion. Best value there. Maxer, best value in the space industry. Virgin Galactic, literally the only one doing suborbital space travel. So kind of de facto best of breed. I don't even know if that's the right way to use that phrase. Facebook, best of breed in social media. CrowdStrike, best of breed in cybersecurity. So, hope this makes sense. And this explains again my thoughts on the EV bubble and why I choose the stocks that I choose. And the last thing I was going to say is like, I'm honestly just really curious to see what happens down the road, 1 to 2 years from now, what the YouTube landscape will look like. You know, if you think about who's the biggest figure in stocks, really, like the most commanding figure, who's the only person who can pump a stock, really, in YouTube right now? Jeremy, have you ever seen him cover an EV stock other than Tesla? Except for maybe NIO like 2 years ago. He covered Nikola, told us to sell it, and he actually called the peak. And after that, he hasn't covered any SPACs, any EVs, you know? So that's just kind of what I remind myself of when I'm like, you know, maybe I should just turn it into an EV channel. Anyways, by the way, guys, no hate to anyone who invests in EVs at all. Like, I completely respect it. Like, I just personally, it's just not for my style and my risk tolerance. I hope everyone does well with those positions. I'm not trying to like talk down on EVs. I just want to explain this because I get a lot of questions about them, and I want to explain like why I react the way I do when you ask me about EVs, and kind of my thought process. And I think there's already enough YouTubers, some good ones out there who cover these stocks. So I don't want to just like add to the echo chamber or like add to the pretty saturated video market for EVs. So again, like if you have EVs, please don't like be offended. I'm sure your accounts are doing really well right now because EVs are rocking it this past week and a half, 2 weeks. But yeah, so this explains my stance. And I love you guys. You guys are the best. Your support allows me to do what I do. Like, you know, if it wasn't like for you guys, YouTube probably wouldn't be a viable or justifiable option for me. So thank you. The Discord's been rocking lately, and you guys are the best. So have a great day and peace.